I stood in the boutique surrounded by crystal chandeliers and champagne glasses, watching my sister Amber twirl in her $25,000 wedding gown. The dress shimmered like moonlight custom beaded with pearls that probably cost more than my monthly salary. When I suggested maybe it was too expensive, her diamond engagement ring caught the afternoon sun as her hand flew across my face. The sharp edges of the 2-carat stone sliced my cheek. I felt warm blood trickle down toward my jaw. The entire boutique went silent. Amber's bridesmaids froze with champagne flutes halfway to their lips. She screamed at me to get out, her voice shrill and hateful, calling me jealous and pathetic. My hand touched my bleeding cheek as I saw the receipt on the marble counter with my platinum card number printed across the top. 7 months of her using me, manipulating me, draining my bank accounts, crystallized in that single moment of violence. My phone buzzed in my purse. Transaction alert. Another $48,000. I stumbled out of the boutique onto the sidewalk, my hand pressed against my bleeding cheek. The cut stung worse than the humiliation burning through my chest. I pulled out my phone with shaking fingers and saw 37 transaction alerts from the past 2 hours alone. Amber had been on a shopping spree while I sat in that boutique like an idiot. Jewelry from Tiffany, shoes from some designer I could not even pronounce. Another $10,000 deposit for the honeymoon suite in Bora Bora. Bridesmaids' gifts. Groomsmen gifts. A second photographer for candid shots. $48,000 in 2 hours. I opened my banking app and stared at the number that made my stomach twist. My checking account showed $1,200. My savings account was completely empty, zeroed out 3 months ago. My retirement fund, the one I had been building since I was 22 years old, showed a negative balance because I had borrowed against it and now owed penalties and taxes. This started 7 months ago when Amber got engaged to Preston Blake. His father owned half the commercial real estate in our city. His mother came from old money, the kind of wealth where they summered as a verb. Amber called me crying one night, begging to use my credit card just once for the venue deposit because her credit cards were maxed out. She swore on our dead grandmother's grave that she would pay me back immediately. That was in March. It was now October. It never stopped. Every single week brought a new emergency. The catering needed a deposit. The flowers required payment upfront. The photographer wanted half his fee. The videographer needed equipment, rental money. The band required a retainer. The venue kept adding upgrades. Amber always had the same excuse. Preston's family expected perfection. His mother was judging everything. The wedding had to be flawless, or his family would think she was not good enough. This was her only wedding. Did I want to ruin her one special day? I kept enabling it. I kept hoping she would pay me back after the wedding when she and Preston combined their finances. I kept believing my sister would not actually destroy me. Current total owed $193,000. I had sold my car 4 months ago to help her. I took the bus to work now, adding 90 minutes to my daily commute. I had been working 60-hour weeks, picking up every overtime shift available. I skipped breakfast and lunch most days, eating 1 meal of ramen or crackers when I got home. My apartment was empty of anything valuable. I had sold my furniture piece by piece. I slept on an air mattress. Also, Amber could have her dream wedding. I sat in the back of an Uber, my hands still pressed to my bleeding cheek, and stared at my banking app. The latest charge from the boutique was still processing. $25,000 for a dress Amber would wear for 6 hours. I scrolled down and saw the option I had never let myself consider before. Report card stolen or fraudulent activity. 7 months of memories flashed through my mind. Amber crying on the phone about how Preston's mother made a comment about the cheap invitations. Amber showing up at my apartment at midnight claiming she needed money right now or the venue would give their date to someone else. Amber guilt tripping me about how I had always been the successful one, the one with a good job and stability, and could not. I helped my little sister just this once. The slap replayed in my mind, the way her ring cut my face, the blood on my fingers, the contempt in her eyes when she screamed at me to get out. I clicked report all unauthorized charges. The screen asked if I was sure. I clicked yes. I called the credit card company. The automated system tried to direct me to the website, but I kept pressing 0 until I reached a human being. A woman named Diana answered. I told her my card had been stolen and used fraudulently for the past 7 months. I wanted every single charge investigated. Diana asked me questions. I answered them calmly, my voice steady even though my hands shook. Yes, I was certain these were unauthorized. No, I did not give anyone permission to use my card. Yes, I wanted the account frozen immediately. Diana put me on hold. Music played for 3 minutes and 40 seconds. When she came back, she confirmed my account was frozen and the fraud investigation had been initiated. All disputed charges would be reviewed. I would receive paperwork in 5 to 7 business days. The current balance was suspended pending investigation. I thanked her and hung up. For exactly 12 seconds, I felt relief wash over me like cool water. Then my phone started exploding. Amber's name flashed on the screen. I declined the call. She called again. Declined, again, declined. The calls kept coming. 10 calls in 3 minutes. I turned off the ringer and watched the screen light up over and over. When the calls finally stopped, the text messages started. What did you do? My card declined. The boutique is calling me. You ruined everything. I hate you. 20 more messages poured in, each more frantic and angry than the last. I watched them appear on my screen with a strange, detached feeling like I was watching this happen to someone else. Then a different number called. Mom. I answered. My mother's voice came through the speaker so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. She was screaming. Amber had called her sobbing, hysterical, claiming I had sabotaged her wedding out of pure jealousy. Amber told our parents that I had offered to pay for the wedding as a gift, my present to my baby sister, and now I was backing out maliciously just to hurt her. I tried to explain. I tried to tell my mother the truth about the past 7 months, about the $193,000, about how I sold everything I owned, about how Amber had been using me and manipulating me, and I just could not do it anymore. My mother cut me off. She said Amber had shown her and Dad the text messages where I offered to help pay for things. Screenshots of our conversations where I said yes to the venue, yes to the catering, yes to the dress. My mother said those messages proved I had volunteered for all of this, and now I was trying to back out and embarrass Amber in front of Preston's wealthy family. I said those texts were taken out of context, that Amber had guilt-tripped and manipulated each one, that she had promised to pay me back for everything. My mother said I always had to make everything about me. I could not stand to see Amber happy. I had always been jealous of her because she was prettier and more outgoing, and now she was marrying into a prominent family while I was still single and bitter. I heard my father's voice in the background. He took the phone from my mother. His voice was cold in a way I had never heard before. He said I was selfish and cruel. He said I should be ashamed of myself. They demanded I call the credit card company immediately and undo everything. I said no. My father said, "How could you do this to your own sister on her special day?" I said, "How could she do this to me for 7 months?" He said I was being dramatic and manipulative. He said Amber showed them proof that I had agreed to help. If I refused to honor my commitment, I would no longer be welcome in their home. I tried one more time to explain about the money, about the fraud, about Amber's lies. My father said, "We don't want to hear your excuses." He hung up. I sat in the back of the Uber, blood drying on my face. My family turned against me and realized what I had just done. I had started a war I might not be able to win, but I could not go back now. I would not let Amber destroy me completely. The Uber dropped me at my apartment. I walked up 3 flights of stairs to my nearly empty studio. The air mattress on the floor, the folding chair, the hot plate on the counter because I had sold my stove to a scrap dealer for $200. I cleaned the cut on my face and put a bandage over it. I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror. The woman staring back looked exhausted and defeated. But somewhere behind her eyes, something had changed. I had finally said no. After 7 months of being used and manipulated and drained dry, I had finally fought back. My phone buzzed. Another text from Amber. "Please undo this. I'm begging you. The wedding is in 3 weeks. Please, Sheila." Then another. "You're going to regret this." I blocked her number. Then I sat down on my air mattress and cried until I had no tears left. 3 days after the boutique incident, a certified letter arrived at my apartment. The return address showed a law firm, Downtown Anderson and Associates. My hands shook as I opened it. Amber had hired an attorney. The letter was 3 pages of legal language that boiled down to threats. Amber's lawyer claimed I had entered into a verbal contract to fund her wedding. They threatened to sue me for breach of contract and intentional infliction of emotional distress. They claimed my fraud report to the credit card company was made in bad faith with malicious intent to harm Amber's reputation and her upcoming marriage. The letter demanded I withdraw the fraud claim within 72 hours and pay all outstanding balances in full, plus an additional $50,000 for the emotional distress I had caused. If I failed to comply, they would pursue all available legal remedies, including criminal charges for theft of services. I read the letter 3 times, each time feeling my chest tighten more. I had no money for an attorney. I had barely enough money for food. The family situation got worse. My parents completely sided with Amber. They called our extended family and told them Amber's version of events. Within 2 days, I was the villain of the entire family. The family group chat, which I was still in because no one had thought to remove me, filled with messages condemning me. My cousin Jenny wrote, "I always knew you were jealous of Amber. This is pathetic." Aunt Carol wrote, "Your sister's wedding is ruined because of your selfishness. Shame on you." Uncle Pete wrote, "You should be ashamed. Family helps family." I tried defending myself in the chat. I wrote out the truth about the $193,000, about Amber's manipulation, about how I had sold everything I owned. No one believed me. They said I was lying to cover my own cruelty. Cousin Jenny said I was making up numbers to justify my jealousy. Aunt Carol said if I really spent that much, it was my own fault for being stupid with money. And my grandmother, the only person who might have believed me and defended me, had passed away 2 years ago from cancer. She would have seen through Amber's lies. She would have stood by me. But she was gone. I felt completely isolated. No family support. No one willing to listen to my side. The credit card company investigation dragged on. They needed extensive documentation proving the charges were unauthorized. I gathered everything I could find. My income statements, showing it was financially impossible for me to afford these expenses. My bank statements showing my accounts drained to nothing. My employment records showing my salary. But I had no signed contracts, no written agreements, nothing that definitively proved Amber had lied about getting my permission. The investigation would take 60 to 90 days, the credit card company told me. In the meantime, I was still legally responsible for the balance. Collection calls started. Automated voices demanding payment. Threatening letters about my credit score. While gathering paperwork for the credit card dispute, I was searching through my file cabinet and found something that made my blood turn cold. Loan documents from my credit union. Personal loan for $50,000. Dated 4 months ago. I never took out a loan. My hands trembled as I read through the pages. The signature looked like mine, but something was off about it. The curve of the S in Sheila was slightly different. I called the credit union immediately, my heart pounding so hard I could barely speak. The representative confirmed the loan. Approved 4 months ago. $50,000 wired to an external account. I demanded copies of all documentation. They emailed me everything within the hour. When I opened the files, my stomach dropped. The loan application had all my information. Social security number, date of birth, employment details, a photocopy of my driver's license. The signature that looked almost exactly like mine but was not quite right. Employment verification from my job. Amber had forged my signature and stolen my identity. She had access to my purse all the time. She knew where I worked. She had been in my apartment dozens of times and could have photographed my documents. The signature was good enough that the credit union had not questioned it. $50,000. That explained where some of the wedding money had come from. Amber had not just been using my credit card. She had committed full-scale identity theft. I immediately filed a police report for identity theft. The officer who took my report was sympathetic but explained these cases were hard to prove, especially between family members. The district attorney's office rarely prosecuted family fraud cases unless there was overwhelming evidence. He gave me a case number and told me to file a report with the Federal Trade Commission. I had evidence now. Real evidence of a crime. I decided to take it to my parents. Surely, when they saw proof that Amber had forged a loan in my name, they would believe me. I drove to their house in my friend's borrowed car. I had not been there since before the boutique incident. When I pulled up, I saw a luxury car in the driveway, a black Mercedes with a vanity plate. Preston's parents. I walked to the front door with the loan documents in a folder. Through the living room window, I could hear voices. I stopped to listen. Amber was inside crying. Her voice carried through the glass. She was telling Preston's parents that I was mentally unstable and had been jealous of her my whole life. She said I was obsessed with ruining her happiness. She claimed I needed psychiatric help and she was worried I might do something dangerous. Preston's mother said, "Should we get a restraining order?" My own mother's voice answered, "I've been worried about her mental state for a while now." I stood frozen on the porch, my hand raised to knock, unable to move. My own mother was agreeing that I was mentally unstable, confirming Amber's lies to these wealthy strangers. Before I could decide what to do, Amber saw me through the window. She screamed, "She's here, she's stalking me." The front door flew open. Preston's father stepped out. He was tall, over 6 feet, with silver hair and an expensive suit. His face was hard and cold. He looked at me like I was something disgusting on his shoe. "You need to leave immediately," he said. "If you don't, I'm calling the police." I held up the folder. "I need to show you something." Amber forged my signature and took out a loan in my name. "I have proof." He did not even look at the folder. "I don't engage with unstable people. Leave now or I will have you removed." My father appeared behind him. He looked at me without a trace of warmth. "You're not welcome here anymore, Sheila. Go." I tried to show him the documents. "Dad, please just look at this. She committed fraud. She stole my identity." He held up his hand. "I don't want to hear it. You've caused enough damage. Leave." Through the window, I saw Amber watching. She stood behind Preston with tears streaming down her face, playing the victim perfectly. But when her eyes met mine just for a second, I saw something else. A smirk. Triumph. She was enjoying this. Preston's father took out his phone. "I'm calling the police now." I walked back to the car, my hand shaking so badly I could barely get the key in the ignition. As I drove away, I saw Amber in the window. She was not crying anymore. She was smiling. I realized then that this was not just about money anymore. Amber was not just manipulating me financially. She was systematically destroying my entire life. She had turned my family against me. She had convinced Preston's wealthy family that I was dangerous and unstable. She was building a narrative where I was the villain and she was the innocent victim. And everyone believed her. 1 week after the disaster at my parents' house, I sat at my desk at work trying to focus on the marketing campaign I was developing for a client. My phone kept buzzing with collection calls, but I ignored them. I had no money to pay anyone. My boss, Patricia, appeared beside my desk. Her expression was serious. "Sheila, can we talk in my office?" My stomach dropped. I followed her down the hall to her corner office with the view of downtown. She closed the door and gestured for me to sit. "I need to talk to you about some concerns," Patricia said. She sat behind her desk and folded her hands. "We received a phone call yesterday from someone who said they were concerned about your well-being." "What do you mean?" I asked. "This person claimed you've been experiencing a mental health crisis. They mentioned erratic behavior, financial instability, family issues. They suggested you might be a risk to yourself or others." My blood turned cold. "Who called?" Patricia shook her head. "They didn't leave a name, but they seemed genuinely worried about you." It was Amber. I knew it instantly. She was not satisfied with turning my family against me. Now she was coming after my job. "Patricia," I said carefully, "I'm not having a mental health crisis. I'm dealing with a family situation, but I'm fine. I'm handling it." Patricia looked uncomfortable. "Sheila, you've been a great employee for 4 years. Your work is excellent. But I have to think about the whole team. Maybe some time off would help you sort things out. Are you asking me to take a leave of absence? I'm suggesting it might be beneficial. For you. It was not mandatory yet, but the suggestion hung in the air like a threat. Take time off voluntarily, or we will make you take it. I'll think about it, I said. That evening, I looked at my finances. The situation was catastrophic. My credit card bill showed $193,000. The fraudulent loan was $50,000. Collection agencies were calling daily about both. My fraud reports were under investigation, but I was still technically responsible for the debts until the investigations concluded. My checking account held $1,200. Rent was due in 1 week, $2,100. I had already borrowed the maximum from my 401k retirement account. I had no car, having sold it months ago. I took the bus everywhere, which added hours to my daily commute. I had no savings, nothing left to sell. I was living on credit card cash advances at this point, which meant paying interest on interest. The next day, I received another letter from Amber's attorney. This one was worse than the first. They were now threatening criminal charges for making a false fraud report. They claimed my report to the credit card company was made in bad faith and constituted theft of services. They demanded I drop the fraud investigation and pay all balances immediately, plus an additional $50,000 for emotional distress. The deadline was 72 hours. I knew I could not pay. I did not have the money, but the threat of criminal charges terrified me. That afternoon, my phone rang. The caller ID showed a name I had not seen in months. Tara, my best friend since college. We had been inseparable for 10 years. I answered with relief, flooding through me. Finally, someone who would believe me and support me. Hey, Tara said. Her voice sounded cautious. How are you? I've been better, I said. Did you hear what's happening with Amber? Yeah, actually. I ran into her at the gym yesterday. My relief evaporated. She told me what's going on, Tara continued. Sheila, I think you need to talk to someone. This jealousy is really unhealthy. The words hit me like a physical blow. What? I'm not trying to be mean. I care about you. But sabotaging your sister's wedding because you're jealous is not okay. Amber told me how you offered to help and then backed out to hurt her. That's really concerning behavior. Tara, that's not what happened. Amber has been using my credit card for 7 months without paying me back. She's stolen almost $200,000 from me. She forged a loan in my name. I have proof, Tara sighed. Sheila, I can't be in the middle of this. I think you need professional help. Maybe you should talk to a therapist about these feelings. I tried to explain further, but Tara cut me off. I need some space from this drama. I hope you get the help you need. She hung up. I sat staring at my phone in disbelief. My best friend for 10 years believed Amber's lies without even listening to my side. That night alone in my apartment, I forced myself to look at the situation objectively. I created a detailed spreadsheet documenting every charge Amber had made on my card. 7 months of transactions. Every venue payment, every vendor, every dress, and every decoration. I took screenshots of the few text messages I had where Amber promised to pay me back before she started manipulating our conversations. I gathered receipts where Amber had signed her own name but used my card. I organized all my bank statements showing the financial devastation. I built a comprehensive case file proving everything I had said was true. The next morning, I went to work determined to push through. But when I arrived, my desk had been cleared out. My computer was gone. My personal items were in a box beside an empty desk. A security guard stood nearby. He looked apologetic. Miss, I need you to come with me. Patricia appeared, her face pale. Sheila, I'm so sorry. What's happening? We received multiple calls yesterday. Anonymous reports claiming you made threats against someone. When we investigated, we found emails sent from your work account containing threatening language. I never sent any threats. I don't know what you're talking about. Patricia showed me printouts. Emails to Amber sent from my work email address. The messages were hostile and threatening, talking about ruining her wedding and making her pay for what she did. I didn't write these, I said. I didn't send these. But as I looked at the timestamps, my blood ran cold. 3 of the emails were sent on a day 3 months ago when Amber had visited me at work. She brought me lunch acting sweet and sisterly. She had been in my office alone for 15 minutes while I was in a meeting. My computer had been unlocked. She must have sent these emails using delayed send, creating a paper trail she could use against me later. "The company has no choice," Patricia said. She actually looked sad. "We can't keep an employee who makes threats." "I'm sorry, but you're terminated effective immediately." The security guard escorted me out of the building. I walked out carrying a box with my desk, plants, and family photos, and sat on the curb outside. I had no job, no family support, no friends who believed me, massive debt in collections, criminal charges threatened, and Amber's wedding was still 3 weeks away. I sat on that curb and cried until I had no tears left. Then my phone rang with an unknown number. I answered the unknown number with a shaking hand. A man's voice came through smooth and professional. "Is this Sheila Martin?" "Yes," I said cautiously. "My name is Marcus Chen. I'm a private investigator specializing in fraud cases. I've heard about your situation through legal channels and I believe I can help you." I sat up straighter on the curb, gripping the phone. "How did you hear about me?" "I have contacts in various law offices. Your case came across my desk. I specialize in gathering evidence for fraud and identity theft cases. I think I can help you prove what your sister did." We agreed to meet at a coffee shop downtown. I took the bus there, clutching my box of belongings from my former job. Marcus was waiting at a corner table. He was in his 40s, wearing a crisp suit with a leather portfolio. He had business cards, a professional website on his phone, and a list of references. He listened to my entire story without interrupting. When I finished, he nodded thoughtfully. "This is a clear case of fraud and identity theft," he said. "I can gather evidence that will prove everything you've said. I can document the forged loan interview witnesses, pull records that show the pattern of abuse. With my evidence, you'll be able to clear your name and possibly press criminal charges against your sister." "How much does it cost?" I asked, even though I already knew I could not afford it. "My standard rate is a $5,000 retainer plus $250 per hour. But I can see you're in a difficult situation. I'll work for $3,000 upfront, and we can arrange a payment plan for the rest." "I don't have $3,000, I said. My voice cracked. "I don't have anything." Marcus studied me for a moment. Then he said, "Bring me what you can. I'll work with you." Over the next 3 days, I liquidated the last things I owned. My grandmother had left me a small jewelry collection when she died. A pearl necklace, a gold bracelet, 2 rings. I took them to a pawn shop and got $2,000, far less than they were worth. I sold my laptop, my tablet, my television, the last few pieces of furniture I had not already sold. I raised $1,200. I took a cash advance on my credit card for $800, knowing the interest rate would be crushing. I brought Marcus $3,000 in cash. He started working immediately. For the first week, he sent me regular updates. Photos of himself at the credit union, pictures of courthouse documents, interviews with potential witnesses. Everything looked legitimate and professional. Then I received a 30-day eviction notice. Without my job, I could not pay rent. My landlord was sympathetic, but had no choice. I had to be out by the end of the month. I started job hunting desperately, but with my termination for threatening emails on my record, no one would hire me. Every application led to a background check that revealed I had been fired from my last position. Every interview ended with polite rejections. I moved into a weekly rate motel on the edge of town. It was $40 per night, $280 per week. The room was tiny, barely bigger than a closet, with a sagging bed and a bathroom down the hall that I shared with 6 other rooms. The carpet was stained. The walls were thin. I could hear my neighbors arguing at all hours. But it was cheaper than an apartment's monthly rent, and I could pay week by week with what little money I had left. Meanwhile, Amber's wedding preparations continued. I saw updates on social media through public posts. She had found a new boutique and gotten an even more expensive dress, $28,000, this time paid for by Preston's family. She posted photos from her bridal shower at an exclusive country club. Her bachelorette party was in Miami, 5 days of luxury hotels and nightclubs. She played the victim beautifully in every post. Despite my sister's sabotage, we're pushing forward with love and strength. The comments were full of support. People I did not even know were congratulating her on her grace under pressure and condemning me for my jealousy and cruelty. The wedding was now 3 weeks away. Marcus called with exciting news. He said he had found the smoking gun. Security footage from the credit union showing someone matching Amber's description entering the branch on the day the forged loan was processed. He also had testimony from a boutique employee who witnessed Amber using my credit card multiple times and signing my name on receipts. "This is exactly what you need," he said. "I'm preparing a comprehensive report with all the evidence, video testimonies, documentation. You can take this to the police and they'll have no choice but to investigate. It will clear your name completely and destroy your sister's credibility." "How much for the report?" I asked. "The final compilation and testimony preparation will be $2,000. Once you pay that, I'll have everything ready within 48 hours. I did not have $2,000. I had $470 left to my name. The motel was $280 per week. I needed to eat. I had no job and no prospects. I tried to get a loan, but my credit was destroyed. I looked into payday loans but could not qualify without employment. I considered every option and came up empty. Finally, in desperation, I called my Aunt Linda. She was my grandmother's sister living 2 states away in Colorado. We had not been close, but she had always been kind to me at family gatherings. I explained everything, the whole nightmare, and begged for a loan of $2,000. Aunt Linda listened quietly. When I finished, she said, "Your grandmother told me to watch out for you girls. She always worried about Amber, said she had a cruel streak. I believe you, honey. I'll send you the money." I cried on the phone. She was the only family member who believed me. The money arrived in my account the next day. I immediately paid Marcus the $2,000. He promised the complete report in 48 hours. He said I should take it directly to the police station, then to the credit card company and the credit union. Everything would be resolved. Amber would be exposed. Justice would finally happen. I waited those 48 hours in my motel room, barely sleeping, checking my email constantly. The 48 hours passed, no report. I called Marcus. The number was disconnected. I emailed him. The messages bounced back. I went to his office address. It was a UPS store with mailboxes. Box number 217. Not an actual office. The truth crashed over me like ice water. Marcus was a con artist. There had been no investigation. The photos he showed me were either staged or stolen from somewhere else. The references he gave were fake numbers. He had targeted me specifically because I was desperate and vulnerable. He had taken my last $5,000. I filed a police report, but the officer who took my statement was not optimistic. "These scams are common," he said. "They target people in desperate situations. We rarely recover the money or catch the perpetrators." "I'm sorry." I walked back to my motel in a daze. I had no money left. No job, no evidence, no support. Amber's wedding was 2 weeks away. I sat on the edge of the bed in that tiny room and stared at the stained wall. I had lost everything, and Amber was about to get her perfect wedding. 10 days before the wedding, I woke up in my motel room and realized I had not eaten a proper meal in 3 days. My stomach ached with hunger, but my bank account showed $11. The motel was paid through the end of the week, but after that I had no idea where I would go. My phone rang. The caller ID showed Mom. I had not spoken to my parents since the disaster at their house, when Preston's father threatened to call the police. I answered, hoping maybe they had finally realized the truth. My mother's voice was cold and sharp. "I'm calling to tell you not to do anything stupid." "What are you talking about?" I asked. "Amber received messages from you last night. Disturbing messages saying you'll be sorry when I'm gone and threatening to hurt yourself before the wedding to ruin her special day." "I never sent those messages," I said immediately. "Mom, I didn't. They came from your phone number. We have screenshots. If you hurt yourself to manipulate us and ruin Amber's wedding, you're sicker than I thought. We've already informed the police about your threats." She hung up before I could defend myself. I checked my phone, desperately looking through my sent messages. There was nothing. But somehow, Amber had sent threatening messages that appeared to come from my number. She must have cloned my phone or hacked my account. She was always 10 steps ahead of me, always thinking of new ways to make me look unstable and dangerous. 2 hours later, someone knocked on my motel room door. I opened it to find 2 police officers standing in the hallway. "We're doing a wellness check," the younger officer said. "Someone reported you as a potential danger to yourself." "I'm fine," I said. "Someone is lying to make me look unstable. I didn't send those messages. I didn't threaten to hurt myself." The officers were kind but professional. They asked me several questions about my mental state. They checked that I was not in immediate danger. Finally, they said they had to file a report. The report would be on record, more evidence for anyone who wanted to paint me as mentally unstable. After they left, I sat on the bed and took inventory of my life. I had $11 in my bank account. The motel was paid through the end of the week, which was 3 days away. Then I would be homeless. I had no job and no prospects because my employment record was destroyed. I had massive debt and collections and a fraud investigation that was going nowhere. My entire family believed I was a jealous, mentally unstable person trying to sabotage my sister's wedding. My best friend had abandoned me. I had been conned out of my last money by a fake private investigator, and now there was a police report suggesting I was suicidal. The wedding was in 10 days. I needed to leave the motel room before I started spiraling into actual despair. I walked to the public library 6 blocks away. The library was free and warm and had Wi-Fi. I could sit there for hours without anyone bothering me. I logged onto one of their computers and tried applying for more jobs, but every application felt hopeless. On the community bulletin board near the entrance, I saw a flyer. Legal aid clinic. Free consultation for low-income individuals. Tuesday and Thursday afternoons. It was Tuesday. I had nothing to lose. The legal aid office was in a small building downtown, staffed by attorneys who volunteered their time. A young woman named Grace Hamilton met with me. She was maybe 30 years old, wearing a simple suit with kind eyes behind her glasses. I told her everything. The entire nightmare from beginning to end. I showed her every document I had. The credit card statements, the forged loan papers, the threatening emails that got me fired, the police reports, all of it. Grace listened carefully and took detailed notes. When I finished, she reviewed all my documents. Finally, she looked up. "This is clear fraud and identity theft," she said. "Your sister committed multiple crimes. The problem is proving it and getting the authorities to act. That requires resources you don't have." "Can you help me?" I asked. "I can help you file the proper reports and fraud claims with all the right agencies. I can make sure you're documenting everything correctly. But I work for a nonprofit legal aid office. We don't have the resources to represent you in civil court or criminal proceedings. I'm sorry." She spent the next 2 hours helping me file an official identity theft report with the Federal Trade Commission. She helped me submit proper fraud claims to my credit card company and the credit union with all the right documentation. She gave me advice on how to protect myself legally, but she was clear about the reality. These processes take months, sometimes years. The wedding is in 10 days. Nothing is going to be resolved by then. I walked out of the legal aid office feeling slightly more organized but no more hopeful. I went back to the library and sat at a computer staring at the screen without seeing it. On impulse, I searched for Preston Blake online. I found his profile on his family's real estate company website. I found articles about their business empire. The Blake family was worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Preston was being groomed to take over the company someday. I found his business email on the company website. For a moment, I considered writing to him directly, sending him all the evidence, begging him to listen to me. But I remembered overhearing him through my parents' window agreeing with Amber that I was unstable and needed help. She had already poisoned him against me. I created a fake social media account so I could view Amber's posts without her knowing. I saw the wedding countdown. 5 days until my bachelorette party. 7 days until the rehearsal dinner, 10 days until I marry my soulmate. The comments were full of congratulations and excitement. Nobody knew the truth. Nobody cared about the destruction she had left in her wake. I saw photos from her final dress fitting at a different boutique. The dress was stunning, even more beautiful than the first one. Preston's family had paid for it. I saw photos of the rehearsal dinner invitation. It would be held at the Blake family estate tomorrow night. Tomorrow night, a pre-wedding dinner party at their mansion. An idea formed in my mind. A desperate, dangerous idea. Preston was my only hope. If I could get to him alone, away from Amber's influence, and show him all the evidence, maybe he would believe me. Maybe he would see the truth. He had the power to stop this wedding. He had the resources to investigate properly. But how could I reach him? His family would have tight security at the estate. After I was arrested for trespassing the last time, they would never let me near the property, unless I found another way in. I spent the rest of the afternoon researching the Blake estate online. I found photos from charity events they had hosted, the layout of the property, the size of the main house. I spent my last $11 on a thrift store dress and used my credit card for an Uber. The credit card was maxed out and I would never be able to pay it, but none of that mattered anymore. This was my last chance. The next evening, I arrived at the Blake estate. The circular driveway was full of expensive cars, valet parking, catering trucks at the service entrance, string lights in the trees. The house itself was enormous, 3 stories of white stone and glass windows. I walked up the driveway like I belonged there, carrying my folder of evidence. Security guards at the front entrance checked a guest list. I knew I was not on it, but the catering staff was flowing in and out of a side entrance carrying trays and supplies. I slipped in with a group of servers, head down, moving confidently like I had every right to be there. Inside the house was stunning. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, enormous flower arrangements. I could hear music and conversation from the main room where the party was happening. I moved through the hallway trying to look purposeful. I needed to find Preston alone. I passed the kitchen where caterers worked frantically. I passed a library with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. I passed a formal dining room with a table that could seat 30 people. Then I saw him. Through a wall of windows, Preston stood alone on a stone terrace overlooking the gardens. He held a glass of wine and stared out at the sunset. This was my chance. I pushed open the terrace door and stepped outside. "Preston, I need to talk to you." He turned his face, registering shock. "Sheila, what are you doing here? How did you get in? Please just listen to me for 5 minutes. I have proof that Amber has been lying to you. She committed fraud and identity theft. She destroyed my life. I can prove everything." I held out my folder. Before he could respond, Amber appeared in the doorway behind him. Her face went from confusion to rage in an instant. "Sheila, what are you doing here? How did you get past security?" People started gathering behind her. Preston's father, my parents, guests with their phones out. "She's stalking me," Amber shrieked. "I told you she was dangerous." Preston's father pushed past Amber and grabbed my arm. "I'm calling the police right now." I tried to show Preston the documents. "Look at this. Look at the forged loan. Look at the evidence." But Preston was backing away, looking at me with pity and fear. He did not understand. He only saw a desperate woman who had crashed his party. "She threatened to kill herself to ruin our wedding," Amber cried, tears streaming down her face. "She's been harassing me for months." Security guards appeared. They grabbed my arms and pulled me away from Preston. I was shouting, trying to explain, but no one was listening. Guests were recording on their phones. My parents stood in the doorway, shaking their heads in disgust. The security guards dragged me through the house and out the front door. Police cars were already pulling up, the driveway lights flashing. I spent that night in a jail cell charged with misdemeanor trespassing. I sat on the concrete bench staring at the cinder block wall and realized I had made everything catastrophically worse. Now I had an arrest record. Amber had even more proof that I was unstable and dangerous. Preston would never believe me now. The wedding was in 9 days. I had lost. The police released me the next morning. The trespassing charge was a misdemeanor. My court date was set for 2 weeks after Amber's wedding. I walked out of the police station into cold October rain with no jacket and no umbrella. I took the bus back to my motel. When I got to my room, the door was open. The manager stood in the hallway with a maintenance worker. "What's going on?" I asked. The manager looked uncomfortable. "Your room's been cleared out. Someone called yesterday claiming to be your sister. Said you checked out early and asked us to move your belongings to storage." "I didn't check out," I said. "I paid through the end of the week." The manager showed me his phone. He had received a call from a woman identifying herself as Amber Martin, my sister, saying there was a family emergency and I had to leave suddenly. She even knew details about my situation that made her story believable. "Your things are at a storage facility 3 blocks away," he said. "Here's the address. You'll need to pay the storage fee to get them back." How much I asked already, knowing I could not afford it. $150. I had exactly $0 in my checking account. My credit cards were maxed. I had no access to my belongings, which included all my remaining clothes, toiletries, and most importantly, all my documentation and evidence. I was now officially homeless. I walked to the public library in the rain. It was the only warm place I could go for free. I sat in the bathroom and cried until I had no tears left. Then, I washed my face and tried to figure out what to do next. My phone was at 5% battery. I had no charger because it was in my belongings in storage. I sat at a computer terminal in the library and checked my email. Nothing helpful, just more collection notices and threats from creditors. An older woman sat down at the computer next to mine. She had gray hair and kind eyes. She glanced over and saw me staring at the screen with tears running down my face. "Are you all right, dear?" she asked softly. I should have lied. I should have said I was fine, but I was so exhausted and broken that the truth just spilled out. "I am homeless. I have nowhere to go." The woman studied my face for a moment. Then she said, "Have you eaten today?" I shook my head. "Come with me." We walked across the street to a small diner. The woman bought me lunch, a burger and fries and a soda. I ate like I had not seen food in days, which was close to the truth. While I ate, she introduced herself. Her name was Lorraine Parker. When I finished eating, she asked what happened. I was so tired of carrying it alone that I told her everything. The whole nightmare from beginning to end. When I mentioned Preston Blake's name, her expression changed. "Preston Blake, Eleanor, and Richard Blake's son." "Yes. Do you know them?" Lorraine nodded slowly. "I worked for the Blake family for 30 years as their estate manager. I just retired 5 years ago. I've known Preston since he was a boy." I felt a tiny spark of hope for the first time in weeks. "Do you think he would listen to you?" Lorraine thought carefully. "Preston is a good person, kind-hearted and generous. But he's naive about people. His parents are very protective. If your sister has convinced them you're unstable, they'll do everything to keep you away from him." I told Lorraine about all the evidence I had, the forged loan, the identity theft, everything. She listened carefully and took notes on a napkin. "I believe you," she said finally. "I've seen this pattern before with wealthy families. People trying to marry into money will do terrible things. Give me 48 hours. Let me make some inquiries." Then she did something that made me cry again. She insisted I come stay at her house. She lived alone in a small bungalow with a guest bedroom. She would not take no for an answer. For the first time in months, I slept in a real bed in a warm house with someone who believed me. Over the next 2 days, Lorraine made phone calls to her old contacts in the Blake household. She explained that she was trying to help someone who had been wronged and needed information about Amber's background. She learned that Richard Blake was very thorough about protecting his family's assets. Any woman Preston seriously dated underwent a background investigation by the family's attorney. But Amber had passed that investigation 6 months ago. Lorraine had a contact at the courthouse, a clerk she had worked with on estate legal matters for years. She asked him to do a deep search on Amber's records. Look for anything unusual, name changes, past legal issues, anything. On the second day, her contact called back with shocking news. Amber Martin was not her real name. 8 years ago, she had been Amber Jennings. She legally changed her name. The courthouse records showed why. 8 years ago, in a different city, Amber Jennings had been engaged to a wealthy businessman named Thomas Crawford. She spent months racking up enormous debts in his name, using his credit cards and forging loans. The wedding was 2 weeks away when Thomas's family discovered the fraud. They investigated and found evidence of systematic financial abuse, but they never prosecuted. Instead, they paid off all the debts to avoid the scandal and embarrassment. They made Amber sign a confidential settlement agreement, promising never to contact their family again. She took the money, moved to a new city, legally changed her name, and started over. This was not the first time. Amber was a con artist. This was her pattern. Lorraine showed me the documentation. Court records of the name change. Copies of old news articles with tiny mentions of the broken engagement carefully worded to avoid details. The settlement agreement which her courthouse contact found in sealed records. "This is it," I said. "This proves everything. She's done this before." But we had a problem. The wedding was in 6 days. How could we get this information to Preston? Lorraine called Martha, her former colleague who still worked as the Blake family's head housekeeper. Martha agreed to hand-deliver a package directly to Richard Blake. We prepared everything. All the evidence about Amber's name change, her previous fraud, the pattern of behavior, and my documentation of the current situation. Martha delivered it that afternoon. 3 hours later, she called back. Her voice was apologetic and sad. Richard Blake looked at everything. Then he called me into his office and said this was clearly fabricated by the unstable sister and her friend. He said Amber had already told them about the name change. She claimed she had a violent stalker, ex-boyfriend, and had to change her name for her safety. They believe her story. He actually threatened me with legal action if I bring him any more information from you or Lorraine. "I'm so sorry," Martha said. "I tried." The wedding was in 5 days. Every attempt to reach Preston had failed. Amber had anticipated every move and gotten ahead of us with plausible lies. She had convinced everyone that I was the villain. That night, Lorraine and I sat at her kitchen table, both of us feeling defeated. Then Lorraine said quietly, "There's one more option, but it's risky." "What?" She pulled something from her purse, a key card. "I still have my access card to the Blake estate. I never turned it in when I retired 5 years ago. It probably still works." "I don't understand," I said. "The wedding is being held at the estate in 5 days. During the wedding, security will be focused on the guests and the ceremony. Richard Blake's private office is in the east wing of the house. If we could get into that office and plant the evidence somewhere, he would find it later somewhere. Amber couldn't intercept it first." "That's breaking and entering," I said. "I could go to prison." Lorraine looked at me steadily. "I'm 72 years old. If we get caught, I'll say I did it alone. You have your whole life ahead of you. I can't let you take that risk," I said. "Then we both take it," Lorraine said. "This is our last chance to stop her before she does to Preston what she did to you." I sat there weighing the options. Commit a crime to expose Amber or let her get away with everything. Let her marry Preston, gain access to millions of dollars, and eventually destroy him the way she destroyed me. It was not really a choice. "We'll do it," I said. 2 days before the wedding, Lorraine and I were refining our desperate plan when her phone rang. The caller ID showed Martha. Lorraine answered on speaker. "Don't do anything yet," Martha said urgently. "Something's happening. Preston has been asking questions." "What kind of questions?" Lorraine asked. Martha explained. "The day before, Amber tried to use a credit card and it was declined. She panicked and blamed the vendor, claimed there must be a mistake. Preston offered to pay with his card instead, but later that evening, he started wondering why Amber's card would decline right before their wedding. He checked their joint bank account. They had opened it specifically for wedding expenses, and both families had been contributing to it. Preston noticed charges he did not recognize. Multiple charges to stores and services that his family had already paid for directly. He realized Amber had been taking money from his family for wedding expenses they had already paid for with my stolen credit card. She had been double billing and pocketing the difference. Over $60,000. Preston went to his father with questions. Richard initially dismissed it, but Preston insisted. They pulled all the wedding financial records and saw the pattern clearly. Richard Blake called his private investigator immediately. He ordered a deeper background check on Amber, one more thorough than the first investigation 6 months ago. The investigator found the name change within hours. He found the previous fraud case and the sealed settlement, but he also found something worse. Amber's divorce from her previous fraud victim, Thomas Crawford, was never finalized. The paperwork had been filed but never completed. Technically, legally, Amber was still married. She was about to commit bigamy. Richard showed Preston everything that evening. Martha said the wedding was being called off. Richard and Eleanor were planning to confront Amber at the rehearsal dinner tomorrow night. Martha told me to come. Preston wanted to apologize to me in person for not believing me earlier. I could barely process it. After months of fighting and losing everything, the truth was finally coming out. Not because of anything I did, but because Amber got greedy and made a mistake. The next evening, Lorraine drove me to the Blake estate. I was terrified, remembering the last time I had been there when I was arrested for trespassing. But Martha met us at the door and brought us inside. The rehearsal dinner was set up in the massive dining room. The wedding party was gathering, Amber's bridesmaids, Preston's groomsmen, both families. Everyone dressed beautifully, laughing and drinking champagne. Preston saw me enter, his face filled with shame. He started walking toward me, clearly wanting to apologize when Amber swept into the room. She was wearing a cream-colored dress, glowing and radiant. Then she saw me. Her face went pale. Her eyes darted from me to Preston to his parents. "What is she doing here?" Her voice was sharp. Richard Blake stood up. The room fell silent. Everyone turned to look at him. "I've called everyone here tonight because the wedding is canceled," he said. The room erupted in shocked voices. Amber's face went from pale to red. She started crying immediately, her go-to manipulation tactic. "What are you talking about? This is my wedding. How dare you?" Richard held up his hand for silence. Then, methodically and calmly, he presented the evidence. He showed the wedding party the records of double billing. The charges Amber made on my stolen credit card for services his family had already paid for. The $60,000 she stole by lying to both families. He showed them the courthouse documents about her name change and her previous fraud case 8 years ago. He explained how she had done this exact same thing to another wealthy man, how she had conned him and his family, how they paid her off to avoid scandal. Then he revealed the final piece. The investigator had confirmed that Amber's divorce was never finalized. She was still legally married to her previous victim. She was about to commit bigamy by marrying Preston. The room was dead silent except for the sound of Amber crying. But her crying changed. I watched her face transform. The fake tears stopped. Her expression shifted from victim to something cold and calculating. She realized she was caught, and there was no way to manipulate her way out of this. She looked directly at me with pure hatred in her eyes. "This is all your fault," she hissed. "You ruined my life. You couldn't just let me be happy. You had to destroy everything." I stood up and walked toward her. For months she had terrorized me, manipulated me, stolen from me, turned my family against me, destroyed my life piece by piece, and she was still trying to play the victim. "No," I said quietly. "You ruined your own life. You made the choice to lie and steal and manipulate. You destroyed yourself. And you tried to destroy me, but you failed." Police officers entered the dining room. Richard had called them before the dinner started. They walked toward Amber with handcuffs. Amber started screaming, then real emotion finally breaking through. She screamed at me, at Preston, at everyone. The officers had to restrain her. They read her rights while she shrieked obscenities. They arrested her for fraud, identity theft, and bigamy. As they led her out of the house, she twisted around to glare at me one last time, but I did not look away. I met her eyes and felt nothing but relief that it was finally over. After she was gone, Preston approached me. He looked devastated. "I'm so sorry," he said. "I should have listened to you. I should have believed you. She manipulated all of us. But that's no excuse. I failed you when you needed help." I accepted his apology, but told him honestly, "You should have listened earlier. You chose to believe her lies because it was easier than questioning what you wanted to be true." He nodded, accepting the criticism. Richard Blake stepped forward. He explained that his attorneys would ensure all the fraudulent debts in my name were discharged. The credit card company would reverse all charges. The forged loan would be eliminated from my credit report. He offered to pay for an attorney to clear my criminal record from the trespassing charge. He also offered me $100,000 as compensation for the damages his son's fiancée had caused me. I accepted. My parents arrived late to the rehearsal dinner, having been invited by Amber. They walked into the aftermath and learned the truth. My mother broke down, crying, apologizing over and over. My father stood silent, his face gray with shame. I told them the truth I had been carrying for months. You chose to believe her lies instead of your own daughter. You turned your back on me when I needed you most. You called me jealous and unstable and mentally ill. I'll forgive you eventually because you're my parents and I love you. But trust takes time to rebuild. You destroyed that trust and it's your responsibility to earn it back. They accepted my words without argument. They knew I was right. 2 months passed. Amber was prosecuted and sentenced to 5 years in prison for fraud, identity theft, and bigamy. The judge was harsh because of her prior history and the calculated nature of her crimes. She was also ordered to pay restitution to me and to Thomas Crawford, her previous victim. The credit card company completed their investigation and reversed all charges. My credit report was cleared. The forged loan was eliminated. Richard Blake's attorneys worked quickly and efficiently. Within 6 weeks, my financial life was restored. I used the $100,000 Richard gave me to rebuild. I found a new apartment, a bright 1-bedroom with big windows and hardwood floors. I bought furniture and filled it with plants. I started over. Richard Blake personally called the CEO of a marketing firm downtown and gave me a glowing reference. I was hired within a week at a salary $15,000 higher than my previous job. My new boss knew the full story and admired how I had fought back against injustice. I slowly started rebuilding my relationship with my parents. We met for coffee once a week. We started family therapy together. It was hard and painful, but we were making progress. Trust was damaged, but not destroyed forever. I became close friends with Lorraine. We had dinner together once a week. She was the grandmother figure I needed after losing mine. She reminded me that even in the darkest times, there are good people who will help if you let them. Grace Hamilton, the legal aid attorney who helped me, became another friend. We started volunteering together at her nonprofit, helping other fraud victims navigate the complex process of fighting back against financial abuse. I used my experience to advocate for stronger identity theft protections and better resources for victims. I learned lessons I would carry forever. Setting boundaries is not cruel. It's necessary for survival. When someone shows you who they are, through their actions, believe them the first time. Family does not mean tolerating abuse. Blood relation does not give someone permission to destroy you. The truth always comes out eventually, even if it takes longer than you hope. Sometimes you have to lose everything to understand your own strength. Real love, whether familial or romantic, never requires you to destroy yourself to prove your devotion. I was proud that I never gave up even when I was homeless and hopeless, and standing at the edge of complete despair. I kept fighting. I kept seeking truth and justice. I survived. Sometimes the worst experiences teach the most important lessons. Sometimes you have to walk through fire to understand that you're stronger than you ever knew. One Saturday morning, 3 months after Amber's arrest, I sat in a coffee shop with Lorraine. Sunlight streamed through the windows. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. "Your father and I would like to take you to dinner this weekend if you're ready." I smiled and typed back, "I'm ready." Lorraine smiled at me. "You saved yourself, dear. I just helped you see it." I realized she was right. For months I had been fighting for justice, for vindication, for someone to believe me. But in the end, I had saved myself by refusing to give up. By continuing to fight, even when everything seemed hopeless. I survived the worst betrayal imaginable. I lost everything and rebuilt from nothing. I was stronger than I ever knew possible. The ending felt like a real beginning. Now, I want to ask you something. Have you ever been in a situation where someone you loved and trusted betrayed you? How did you find the strength to keep going? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might help someone else who's going through something similar. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button. Subscribe to hear more stories about resilience and triumph over betrayal. And share this with someone who needs to hear that they're stronger than they think. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it reminds you that no matter how dark things get, you have the strength to survive and rebuild. You are never as powerless as someone wants you to believe. Keep fighting. Keep standing up for yourself. You deserve better, and better is possible.